Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. AITA for being blind all this time while my sister suffered all her life. I was really clueless when I was younger and never thought that someone other than my sister could be at fault for the way things turned out, or maybe the reason my sister left the house and me all these years ago could have nothing to do with me, or her wanting to abandon me and might have something to do with her. So, am I really just a nasty and spoilt brother who is so selfish that not once did I think about the other person? I just want to know if it is my fault or if anyone else was in my place, they would have done the same thing. So, about 6 years ago, when I was 11 and my sister was 16, she ran away from home. At first, I thought it was because of me. I thought she hated me so much that she couldn't stand to be in the same house as me. And since there was no way that our mother would kick me out of the house, she had to leave her home. I blamed myself for being so annoying and not giving her the space that she needed. I started hating myself for being the way I was and tried my best to change myself. I stopped doing things I liked and I started staying in my room. I wouldn't eat her favorite snacks or watch TV. I would leave my PlayStation alone and wouldn't go into her room at all. I thought if I just completely changed myself and behaved the way that she wanted me to, she'd come back. I asked my mom to call her and tell my sister that I would never annoy her again and she can come back home now since everything will be changed. But even after doing all that, she didn't return. I tried contacting her on social media and left a million texts, but she never saw them or replied to them. Gradually, I started hating her and started blaming her for leaving me alone with mom. I cursed her for being a bad sister and I prayed that something bad will happen to her. I was so angry at her because now I was all alone and had to deal with mom on the nights that she would get drunk. I was all alone when mom would get angry and start throwing stuff around. As I grew up, I learned how to handle these situations, and the best way was to leave the house or lock myself in my room so that I wouldn't come face to face with mom while she was going through one of her phases. I started hating my mom and also blamed my sister for the way I turned out to be. I thought that if only she hadn't left home all those years ago, mom wouldn't get this angry and I wouldn't have to deal with this crap. I blamed her for ruining our family. So, after all these years, when I finally received a text from her, I was really shocked. It had been 6 years since she had left home, and all these years she didn't contact me once. She didn't reply to any of my messages or calls and didn't even bother to explain herself, before leaving the house. So, why would she text me now and ask me to meet her? What right did she have to contact me? The anger I had buried for so long came rushing to the surface, and all I wanted was to scream at her or hurt her the way she hurt me. I wanted to tell her what she put me through. I wanted her to know the person I had become and feel guilty over ruining my life. That's why I texted her back, saying that I can meet her that weekend if she's willing to come over to the house. She replied very fast, saying that she can't meet me at the house, and if I can just meet her after school at our local Wendy's, she'd be very grateful. So last Thursday after school, I went to meet her. I was honestly curious to know what brought her back here when she didn't care about things that she left behind all these years ago. When I met her, she hugged me and she was smiling. She asked me how I was, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I was so pissed off with her. I asked her what she wants with me, and she said that she understands that I'm angry at her for leaving the way she did, and she really wanted to apologize for that. She said she never wanted to leave me behind, but she was young and could barely look after her, so she thought that I'd be better off living with my mom. She told me that she knew I would be angry and didn't want to open old wounds by coming here, but she didn't have any other choice since she was about to be married. She told me that she had been in a very loving relationship for a while now and had met her fiance's family. Her fiance recently asked her to share something of her past with him, and I am the only thing that she loved from her past. That is why she decided to meet me and try to work things out because she would like me to be her family at her wedding. I lost myself at that moment. The nerve of her to come here after all these years and ask me to be her family. I told her that it's impossible since I blame her for ruining my life and all my issues. I started screaming, and all the hurt and anger of the past 6 years just rushed out of me. By the time I was done getting everything out, she was crying. She started saying sorry and kept saying how this isn't what she intended to do. She told me she really thought that I'd be fine with mom. I only asked her why she really left, and she told me that she had no other choice. She was scared to death when she was living in that house. I was too young to notice anything, but our mom wasn't exactly the person I thought she was. She told me how after I'd gone to bed, our mom would go to her room under the pretext of tucking her in, but would end up sexually abusing her. She told me she couldn't ask for help from anybody since no one would believe her, or at least that's what she thought at that time, and that's why she decided to run away. She did think of taking me with her, but she could barely survive alone, let alone be responsible for me too. She continued to apologize for everything she did, and she said if she'd known all these years ago that her leaving would make me the victim of mom's anger, she would have quietly suffered or taken me with her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. To think I was blaming her for the past when she was in an even worse situation than me. That day, when I ultimately came home, I didn't retire to my bedroom, but instead, I waited for mom in the kitchen. Once mom came back, I confronted her about all the things my sister had told me. I asked her how she can do this and if she feels no shame for doing such disgusting things. How can she do this to her own daughter? My mom didn't say anything, but just stared at me. After a while, she got angry and started cursing my sister. She said she would find that piece of crap daughter and would teach her a lesson or two on how to keep her mouth shut. I was scared to death by listening to all these things. I came back to my room and I locked myself inside. I knew I needed to keep myself safe if I wanted to help my sister, so I stayed quiet all night. Next morning, I found that my mom had left the house in a hurry. Her bedroom door was ajar and her room was a mess. It looked like someone had packed up stuff in a hurry. That was yesterday, and my mom still hadn't come back home. I haven't been able to reach out to my sister either. I'm scared to death and can't do anything but blame myself for being an a-hole to my sister and screaming at her. I don't know what to do now. It's been a week since my mom went missing. She still hadn't returned home, but now I know that what my sister told me was true. I still can't believe that my mom would do something so disgusting and revolting. I was able to reach out to my sister after a day of writing my original post, and thankfully she was fine. I told her that when I confronted mom, she blew her top and was threatening to find her and teach her a lesson. I told my sister that she needs to be careful from now on and not go outside alone. I also begged her to report the abuse to the cops and assured her that I'll back her up since our mom pretty much confessed to me about her behavior. It took a lot of convincing, but she finally agreed to file a report. I went down to the station with her this weekend and we filed a report. The officers told us that they'll sweep the area my sister lives in to make sure my mom wasn't near there. They also told me to live with my sister or go crash with a friend for a while, since I'm a witness now and might get in harm's way. I'll be leaving to live with my sister in an hour. I'll update here if anything else happens. The cops were able to find my mom when she finally returned to our house. Turns out she was staying with a guy she recently met and was looking for my sister, but wasn't able to find her. Since she needed to return to work, she decided to come back and forgot about what happened. Too bad for her that we weren't so easy to forget her crimes. She is now charged with sexual abuse of a minor, and pretty soon she'll go to trial. I have decided to live with my sister for a few months until I have to go to university for my first semester. We've been working on our relationship and there has been a lot of stuff to work through. I told her I'd also be happy to attend her wedding as her only family. Hopefully, nothing worse happens and we can live our life happily from here on out. NTA, you're definitely not an a-hole. If I was in your place, I would have done the same thing since your sister didn't tell you anything to begin with. NTA, it's not your fault that you were too young to notice anything. Your mom is the a-hole here, and I hope she lives a miserable life. I can't believe a mother would be this repulsive. My sister-in-law used to be a drug addict with no stable job and trapped in toxic relationships till she got pregnant 2 years ago, but ended up miscarrying because of her unhinged behavior, which left a mark on her. Since then, She turned her life around, accepted to get help for her addiction, and she's clean and has a stable income. However, there's still one problem with her. She still mourns her lost pregnancy almost every time we see her, which I understood initially as it would be a pretty big trauma for everyone. But it's been years since then, and her pity parties already got pretty old, especially, and I know I might sound cynical, when her lost pregnancy was what made her turn her life around for the better. Fast forward. I, 28 female, got pregnant with my husband of 3 years, 29 male, and yesterday we had a gender reveal party for our families. It's a boy. His sister, of course, was there, and not long after the reveal, she started to reminisce about how much she'd wanted to become a mother as well, and how much she got affected by her pregnancy. I quickly got sick of this, as not only was she once again pulling this stunt, but she was doing it at my gender reveal in order to get all the attention on her. And so I told her that she should reconsider her miscarriage as a blessing in disguise, as it finally gave her the help that she needed to turn her life around. She looked shocked at me and then asked me if I seriously think that her miscarriage was a good thing. I told her that considering that back then she was a drug addict who was changing her jobs and partners faster than sockets, with a father who wasn't in the picture, at least that's what she told us, but knowing her past lifestyle, I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't even know who the father was and was too embarrassed to tell us. It's probably for the better that her child wasn't brought into the world in those conditions. After that, she, together with my parents in law, started blowing off at me, telling me that just because I lack empathy doesn't mean I get to reduce her trauma to a good thing. My husband intervened and finally managed to calm them down, and the party ended abruptly. After everyone left, my husband took aside and told me that what I said was really out of line and my pregnancy hormones aren't an excuse to act so unhinged. That made me blow off at him, telling him to cut the misogynistic crap about pregnant women being out of control, as there was nothing unhinged about what I said to his sister. It was just the rational truth, and if he wants to see unhinged behavior, he should look no further than his own family. He got too ashamed to say anything else after that, and I made him sleep on the couch, so I wouldn't need to hear any more BS coming from his mouth. AITA? YTA, there's nothing misogynistic about calling out inappropriate behavior when you see it. You could have got up and walked away and refilled your drink or greeted your other guests, etc., when she started to talk about her loss during your party, but you chose to be unkind. I hope to God that this is just hormones and not your natural disposition to be so unkind. I hope you don't teach your son to tell people that their pregnant loss is a blessing. ESH, except your husband. Your sister in law shouldn't have made your gender reveal about her loss, but you absolutely, positively do not get to tell someone else how to feel about a traumatic event. She wanted that baby, regardless of whether or not she should have, according to you. The same behavior you're accusing your husband of assigning to you is the same thing you're using to justify minimizing your sister in law's loss. You don't get to tell someone else how to grieve. YTA, not for what you think, but for how you handle the situation. Your sister in law needs a therapist, not some unsympathetic, cynical person who considers her selfish. You consider her talking about it to be a stunt, so you would be the last person to approach her how you did. And how you treated your husband is a-hole behavior too. He was defending his sister, his family, when you were acting like a dick to her. So yeah, you are the a-hole, not for what you said exactly, but for how you went about the whole ordeal. I do hope your sister-in-law gets a nice therapist who can help her with her trauma before she gets pregnant again. And I hope you're not like this with your husband all the time. I am well off. I have a family of 5, and a few months ago I was contacted by my biological daughter, 17, after she found out my info. We met up in a public place and honestly had a great time. We talked and shared stories, and I told her how everything went down with her other biological parent and why we needed to give her up for adoption at the time. She seems happy with where she is, and she seemed to be happy with the answers she got, although I understand it took time to process. She told me how she didn't want to go to college or university, but rather work on her music career and her side business with a part-time job that she has. Her parents seem okay with this as long as she's making money. Well, that's that. I don't have the right to interfere, but I did give her advice and say that she shouldn't rule it out just so that she has something to fall back on. She laughed it off and we moved on. Anyways, fast forward to 2 weeks ago, she came to my place. I guess I should note again that I am well off. My company grew way past my expectations, and I can proudly say that I live a nice, lavish life with good cars, etc. She stayed over and met my family. They got on well with the kids, and my wife loved her around. 2 days ago, she called me saying that she took my advice and she had been applying to different schools and looking at different accommodations. She told me about some of the schools, and I'm familiar with them, and she showed me some very expensive accommodations. I told her I was proud and what did she want to study, and she said she wants to study the arts. Well, I said that's great and her parents must really be happy. She agreed and was silent. I asked if she was okay, and she blatantly said, "Well, will you help me to pay for it?" I was speechless. I didn't really know what to say, and I told her that wasn't an easy question. Then she hit me with the, "Well, I thought since you were my dad and you left me when you couldn't take care of me, and now you have everything you can, that you'd want to." I asked her what about her parents, and she said they don't have enough. I told her I'd need to think about it, and I left the call. I went over it with my wife, and she also doesn't think it's a good idea. We have 3 kids who need to go as well, and there are so many other finances between and after that. We have the money, but we planned around just 3 kids, including any type of emergency that may happen. I texted her last night that I won't be able to do it, and she blew up. Told me that I had the chance to do what was right, but I screwed up again. I feel terrible. AITA? Me and my wife have been thinking of contributing to her tuition if she is really serious, but we'll first be asking whether she will consider community college. But I don't think paying for a luxury apartment can be done. Thank you, everyone, for your input and kind words. We are going to speak to her parents, and I will try to give an update in a few days. She was given up for adoption. Absolutely not. If both of her biological parents gave her up for adoption and she now has been adopted and raised by other people, she is their responsibility, not yours. Sure, I can see why she'd be pissed, and she probably thinks you chose to keep your 3 kids, so why did you not choose to keep me? But she isn't entitled to your money at all. NAH, I can really see both sides here. You pushed her on the college route and then balked when she asked for help. Her response wasn't appropriate, but she's young, and so give her some grace to come to terms. Decide what, if anything, you're willing to contribute, and then sit down with her and get into specifics and expectations, like making sure she's going for a school that is well rated for her desired career path versus being in a city where she wants to live.